Okay, we're on page 639 of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. It's the chapter where Ramakrishna is visiting the Sinti Brahmo Samaj, and he's sitting and having a conversation with a pundit. This particular pundit, he's really enjoying the conversation. He sees that the man has quite a bit of renunciation in him and some good knowledge of the scriptures. And so he's closing up this conversation with him, and he says, one can understand the Bhagavata well if one has already studied the Nyaya, the Vedanta, and other systems of philosophy. Isn't that so? The Pandit's son, yes, sir. It is very necessary to study the Sankhya philosophy. The conversation went on, and Sri Ramakrishna was leaning against a big pillow. The devotees were sitting on the floor, lying in that position. The master began to sing, brother, joyfully cling to God, thus striving, someday you may attain him. And I really love this verse, this little song that he's singing. When I saw that I was going to get to read it today, I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. Because it draws back to that notion. I did that lecture a while back called Practices for Now. And it's this idea of non-grabbing, not to do our practice for something, for an imagined great day in the future, not to see it as an acquisition or an accomplishment, but rather it's for now. I mean, the practice is its own thing, right? It's not for something else. Practice is you purposely placing yourself in the presence of God and enjoying that moment with clarity, meaning being very present in it, as present as possible in it. And I love how he says here, brother, joyfully cling to God. Like this is what life is right now, is just us joyfully clinging to God. And then he says, and thus striving, someday you may attain him, right? So he says he's not even making it the purpose, because he says it's not even for sure. Someday you may attain him, right? And so the whole point is clinging to God, sitting in that joyful, beautiful rapture, really, of presence, and allowing yourself to open, to relax, to completely accept God and that love and that presence and that grace within you. And that this is the striving, right? So he says, brother, joyfully cling to God. And then he says, thus striving. So striving in that way, right? To what? To enjoy the presence of God. That is what you strive for, right? It's striving so that that moment that you're sitting in the presence, you're aware of it and you're open to it, and you're feeling the joy of it. You're feeling the gift of it, the blessing of it. And that's our striving, to keep our mind held to that awareness, keeping our mind disciplined to that experience of being, and to be ever mindful, right? Ever mindful of that presence. So our striving is to enjoy God, and our attainment will come in time, but it's not the point. Why? Because we have it now. We have it now. It's only our awareness that is lacking. Right? But we have God as much now as we will when we're sitting on the park bench next to him in heaven. It's like he's no farther now and no nearer now than at any other time. He's everywhere present. He is you, closer than your neck. So joyfully cling to God, and thus striving, someday you may attain him. Their host entered the room and saluted Sri Ramakrishna. Whenever they say saluted, that means doing a pranam in front of them, almost always. I say that in case there's anyone like me. For my first 4 or 5 years in the monastery, I grew up in a military family. And my father was saluting people all the time at the base. Whenever we go for a walk, he'd be doing his thing. And so I read this in the gospel, that they saluted Ramakrishna. And I just pictured people just saluting Ramakrishna. That's what I thought was going on. That they were all just like, hello, Ramakrishna, salute. But it's actually that pranam, that laying down to show your respect. So he was a pious man and devoted to the master. The Pandit's son was still there. The master asked if the Panini, the Sanskrit grammar, was taught in the schools. He further asked about the Nyaya and the Vedanta philosophies. The host did not show much interest in the discussion, so he changed the subject. The host, revered sir, what is the way for us? Right? So what is the way to God? Asking Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna gives him a very straightforward answer here. This might be helpful. Chanting the name and glories of God, living in the company of holy men, and earnestly praying to God. So that's the way, right? That's the way, especially toward the beginning. Very straightforward. Chanting the name is what places us in presence. It helps us become aware, right? And that singing the names and glories of God, it brings a great deal of joy because you're thinking very positively. You know, you're looking through your mind for the glories, and you're looking through the things you experience through the senses. You're looking and thinking of grand things, right? The beautiful mountains in Colorado, the lovely sunset in Santa Barbara, the grace of God, just the openness of it, the boundarylessness of it, right? The depth of it. So chant the names and the glories of God, live in the company of holy people, find your support group, right? Find people who are wanting to accomplish the same things, wanting to know the same things, are interested in knowing the same things. Find your troop, find your tribe, right? And then earnestly pray to God. Pray to God and mean it. You know, the renunciation is a good sign of earnestness. You know, when you let go of the things that aren't helpful to you. And studying is a good sign of earnestness. Taking that time out of your day and applying your mind to learning some of these philosophies, the Nyaya and the Vedanta, right? Nyaya is a way of reasoning, a very old path to God. And the Vedanta philosophy, Vedanta technically, in technical terms, Vedanta is non-dualism, right? The Vedanta is usually the Advaita ideal. And Ramakrishna kind of puts a different pattern on all of that. He said Advaita, right, which is that one without a second, non-duality. He says that that's the end game of all of the paths of all religion. All religion ends in Advaita, right? But all paths are dual. There's no such thing as a non-dual practice. It would be impossible. If there's one without a second, what are you going to practice with? What are you going to practice? There's no other, right? So there's a simple silence of unity in that state. So earnestly praying to God, the host, please bless me, sir, that I may pay less and less attention to worldly things. Right? And really what he's asking there is, God, do it for me. Right? Bless me that I may pay less and less attention. But that's the whole point. Make that earnest prayer. You know, make that earnest prayer and lay it at the feet of Thakur or your chosen ideal. And if your faith, if your earnestness is great enough, if your faith is great enough, it will be done for you, right? Please bless me, sir, that I may pay less and less attention to worldly things. Master, smiling. How much attention do you give to the world? 50%? Laughter. Host, you know that, sir. We cannot achieve anything without the grace of a holy person like yourself. Master, if you please God, everyone will be pleased. It is God alone that exists in the heart of the holy man. All right, making a very, very, very important distinction here. He's taking this man's attention off of a particular body and personality and placing it on the divine infinite, saying, look, don't you put your trust in people, places, or things. You go for God, right? And if you're going to a holy man, be going to God in that holy man, right? Always keep your mind straight. Why? Because you get into these weird relationships. You can, how much do we have to know about guru worship and to see what's happened in the last, 50 years in this country with all the gurus and all the scandals and all of that? It's like, keep yourself centered within yourself. All that you need is within you. You go to the teacher, but you go to God in that teacher. You don't go to the personality. You don't pick them because they're handsome or because they're beautiful or because they say nice things to you or they tell you you're always doing great. right? You go to God and you pray ahead of time. I'm coming to you to learn this today. Please bless my time in that, right? And so that earnestness and that directness in there. So the Ramakrishna didn't like this. We can't achieve anything without the grace of a holy person like yourself, as if it's the person that gives that, right? And so he's very straightforward. And he said, Ramakrishna always being the one for truth. If you please God, everyone will be pleased. It is God alone that exists in the heart of the holy man, right? So always remember that. We go to God always. It may be God in the guru, it may be God in our teacher, God in our neighbor, God wherever, right? But it can be God anywhere. We were talking over lunch today about gurus. Somebody had listened to that lecture a couple of weeks ago, and so we were talking about it, and she was asking about the guru in a person, right? That she kind of struggled with that, and then that they told her that there's only one guru, but there's many faces, and then she was concerned about that, and she was saying, how do we sort this out? And I say, well, this is one way. I said, one is if we know that the ultimate truth is one without a second, then we can quite honestly say that all the rest of this stuff is made up. And that Vivekananda says, in as many people, so many paths to God. I said, so really and truly, who is the guru? It depends on you and your mind. If you still fully see yourself as a body-mind, then seek out a body-mind. Find a person who's your guru and go forward. In time, we begin to see that there's a single guru who's teaching through everyone. And then we go beyond that and we understand that there's a single guru that has become everything and is teaching through everything. And that it's really a matter of you to make everything your guru by walking around with the awareness that I'm walking in God. I'm walking in the divine. This table, this chair, this air, this beautiful flower, my happy little orchid growing there. This is all the beloved, all my divine beloved. And I can learn from anything that I'm willing to humble myself to. I can sit here with this plant. No, and I'm not kidding when I say this. You can sit to this plant and you can pray a nice prayer and say, Mother, teach me through this orchid. And just sit there and look at the orchid and let the mind be. And you will get a lesson from the orchid about life. a secret about life. That's the observation of a plant given to you. So with faith, with that God intoxicated mind, the guru becomes everything that you see, hear, taste, touch, or smell. Everything is teaching you. This world is meant to bring you to realization, right? It's meant for God to be manifested freely and purely in everything. The host says, well, nothing, of course, remains unrealized when one attains God. If a man attains God, he can give up everything else. If a man gets a rupee, he gives up the joy of a penny. Okay. The master. Well, a little spiritual discipline is necessary, right? Right. So he's saying, because he starts off saying, well, ask God to do it for me, right? Bless me that I might have no desire for, or less desire for worldly things. And then he comes here and he's kind of saying that, if you get God, then you renounce, right? You don't renounce and then get God. You get God and then renounce. And the master is saying, well, actually there's a step in there, a little one. He says, well, a little spiritual practice is necessary. I mean, you have to do something, right? Through the practice of discipline, one gradually obtains divine joy, right? What is that divine joy? That divine joy is when you can sit there and chant the name of God and feel her presence in the heart and laugh with her, right? Giggle with her. Just enjoy that presence. Whether you want to sit there and think that you're imagining what she's saying, or you can imagine her reaction to your joke when you tell it, whatever it is, it's all done through faith, but it grows into reality with us. Mother, if you give her a costume of a camel, she'll inhabit it and teach you as the camel. right? Mother will take the space that you give her in your mind. She will move in there, right? I say this. I say this for actually with a lot of fun because, like I said, when I started my practice, it was 2 minutes twice a day. And usually when I give that class where I mention that, I always tell people, be careful, look what happened to me. Right? You give mother 2 minutes twice a day, and if you mean it for those 2 minutes twice a day, don't be surprised if you end up in a convent or a monastery at some point. She will move in. She's that, that famous story, the camel in the tent, right? The soldier was put up his tent. It was stormy outside. He was sleeping in the tent, and the camel was very restless outside because it was getting wet, right? And so the camel was like, kind of just wanting to get in the tent, and the soldier kept saying, no, 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 no. And so the soldier finally started feeling bad, and he said, well, you can just put your nose in the tent. And so he leaves a little zipper undone so the camel can stick its nose in there. So the camel sticks his nose in there, and then pretty soon the whole head is in there. And then after he wakes up the first time, the whole neck is in there. Well, before morning, the whole camel's in there, and the guy's outside, right? This is God. God will do that to you in the most beautiful and delightful of ways, right? You give him 2 inches into your life, into your body, into your mind, just a slight little bit. Be earnest about it, and then be careful, because you have no idea what you have just awakened in yourself. Right? So a little spiritual discipline is necessary. Through that practice of discipline, one gradually obtains divine joy. Suppose a jar with money inside is hidden under the earth and someone wants to possess it. In that case, he must take the trouble of digging for it. As he digs, he perspires, and after much digging, the spade strikes the metal jar. He feels the thrill at the sound. The more sound the spade makes striking against that jar, the more joy he feels. What a great description. When practice actually starts becoming the experience of presence, this is exactly how you feel. Very excited. And you're certainly not going to stop digging, right? You're like, wow, this is something. There's actually something here. I've actually found something. This is amazing, right? The Ramakrishna says, well, pray to Rama. Meditate on him. He will certainly provide you with everything. Host, revered sir, you are Rama himself. Master, how is that? The waves belong to the river. Does the river belong to the waves? Right? So he's again instructing this man, stop making it about a person. Right? Stop making it about a person here. It's like I'm a wave, right? I'm a manifest. I'm a wave. I'm not the ocean. Right? Does the ocean belong to the waves? No, the waves belong to the ocean. So he's saying he's not necessarily saying that it's not true, but he's saying it's something that shouldn't be said, right? Because God can't fit into an I. And so even though I am an incarnation, I'm a whole through which God can be seen. I'm not something that represents God. Do you see the difference? I'm a whole through which God can be seen, meaning there is nothing here. Don't stop here, right? I'm merely a way for you to see God. Look through me and see God. There's nothing here in addition to that, right? How is that? The waves belong to the river. Does the river belong to the waves? Host, well, Rama dwells only in the hearts of holy men. He cannot be seen in any other way. There is no incarnation of God at the present time. Master smiling. How do you know there is no divine incarnation? The host remained silent. What a magical, if you have the faith that Ramakrishna is an incarnation of God, can you see this playful moment here? It's hilarious. He has a devotee in front of him saying, "Oh, there's no incarnation around now." And Ramakrishna just smiles. He's like, "Yeah, are you sure?" And so the host remains silent. Master, everyone cannot recognize an incarnation. When Narada visited Rama, Rama prostrated himself before Narada and said, "We are worldly creatures. How can we be sanctified unless holy men like you visit us?" Further, Rama went into exile in the forest to redeem his father's pledges. He saw that, since hearing of his exile, the rishis of the forest had been fasting. Many of them did not know that Rama was none other than the supreme Brahman. Host, you too are that same Rama. Master, for heaven's sake, never say that. Right? Oh, can you imagine an I owning the idea of being God? How what an egotistical nightmare that would become? Well, that's what Ramakrishna is being very careful of. He's like, he's not denying that he's that, but he is saying that should never be said to a person. It's like, no, that's such a dangerous thing. That's not going to be helpful. So for heaven's sake, never say that. As Sri Ramakrishna spoke these words, he bowed down to the host and said with folded hands, that Rama dwells in all beings. He exists everywhere in the universe. I am your servant. It is Rama himself who has become all men, all animals, and other living beings. Right? So Ramakrishna really showing him, really teaching him. It's like, stop. No, it's not like that. Right? It's not personality worship. It's not person worship. God is everywhere present. God can be seen in everyone and everything. Host, but sir, we don't know that. Master, whether you know it or not, you are Rama. Right? So if you're going to lay it on me, I'm laying it on you. You're no more Rama than I am Rama. Right? Now, there is an irony in this, of course, because we know that Ramakrishna does say privately, at least once in our scriptures, that he who was Krishna and he who was Rama is now Ramakrishna before you. Right? And it's in that notion that all of these incarnations are the same person. Right? It's not one God that came as Rama and one God that came as Jesus and one God that came as Buddha. Right? It's not just a bunch of gods manifesting to start their own, social groups on the planet. It's God coming again and again and again, right? Digging a deeper and wider river for us to splash around in and to learn of his nature and to come to know our own divine nature, right? And so Ramakrishna here is making the point and showing him physically, but folding his hands, bowing down before this guy as Rama, saying, I salute you as Rama, right? Whether you know it or not, you are Rama. Host, you are free from love and hatred. Master again, how so? I engaged a carriage to bring me to Calcutta and advanced the coachman 3 annas, but he didn't turn up. I became very angry with him. He is a very wicked man. He made me suffer a lot. Sri Ramakrishna was resting, and the Marwari devotees had been singing bhajan on the roof. They were celebrating the Krishna festival. Arrangements had been made for the worship and food offering. At the host's request, the master went to see the image. He bowed down before the deity. Sri Ramakrishna was profoundly moved as he stood before the image. With folded hands, he said, O Govinda, you are my soul. You are my life. Victory to you, Govinda. Hallowed be your name. O Govinda, you are the embodiment of Satchitananda. O Krishna, O Krishna, Krishna. Krishna is knowledge. Krishna is mind. Krishna is life. Krishna is soul. Krishna is body. Krishna is caste. Krishna is family. O Govinda, my life and soul. Uttering these words, Sri Ramakrishna went into samadhi. He remained standing. Ram Chatterjee supported him. What is this a perfect example of that we just read? Right? Over on the page before, what did he say? He said, chanting the names and glories of God is one of the ways of finding him. And here he is in this temple, looking at the image of God. And what is he doing? He's singing the names and glories right there. So if you want an example of what it looks like, you can go into the shrine here at whatever shrine is close to you. Go in there and stand and just stare at the image. Just be there in silence for a moment and let that image, let God move out of your heart and into the image, right? Ask him to move out of the guard. Do a little in-place puja and sit there and begin singing to him. Just say to him, say, God, go sit in the image for a moment and let me sing to you. Go sit in the moment for just a moment. I want to bow down to you. Just for a moment. I want to sit here and just gaze at you and pray for a moment, right? Because that's what a temple is for. That's why we go there, to bow down, to meet the beloved, to have a way of touching God with our senses. He's offered himself for that. That's why he comes, is to be that connection point between us and the infinite, right? Something that God, the infinite absolute, doesn't have a handle, doesn't have a name, doesn't have a face, doesn't have a body. There's no way to touch him, no way to talk to him, no way to hear him, because he's unmanifest. And out of grace, he manifests, becomes a body at great cost to himself, as it were. At great cost, he comes and lives a life under the same circumstances as you and I, right? To show us what it looks like to be free. What does it look like to not be subject to anger and jealousy, bitterness, and all of these things? What's it like to not be run by our sex lives, by our bodies, and its hungers and its thirsts, and the minds with all of its conflagrations of reality, right? So we look at Jesus, we go and we just gaze at Jesus, just think, you are the Son of God, right? Just sing that name in glories. Go to Rama, name glories. Go to Ramakrishna, our Holy Mother. All of the divine ideals that have visited. Go and stand in front of them and just let the heart open. Sing your own song, write your own music. After a long time, the master regained consciousness of the world. The Marwari devotees were about to take out the image. The offering of food was to take place outside the room. The master joined the procession of devotees. The food was offered with arati and music. Sri Ramakrishna fanned the image. Then began the ceremony of feeding the Brahmins. They were seated on the roof, and the master and his devotees also partook of the prasad. Sri Ramakrishna took leave of the host. It was evening, and the street was jammed as before with people and vehicles. He said, "Let us get out of the carriage. It can only go by a back street." Proceeding on foot, he found that betel leaf seller had opened his stall in front of a small room that looked like a hole. I saw a guy selling betel leaf in. Yeah, if you haven't been there, you should go to Benares, right? Benares sometime. It's like walking through another person's subconscious. That town is the oldest continuously occupied city in the world. And you go there and, there's not really, in the old part of town, there's no real streets. It's just all these little kind of footpaths that sort of wander through all of these buildings. Nothing is squared and gridded like it is. It's all angled and twisted, and buildings of different heights and sizes, and just all pushed and munched together there. And you kind of walk around, you never know what you're going to see around the next corner. You just never know what you're going to see. For instance, I came around one corner and there was this big, beautiful white ox standing in the path. And there was no way to get past him, and he was facing me. And I was just like, oh, well, And you come around the next corner, you're walking along a little bit more, and suddenly it opens up, and now you're in a bazaar with all these colors and sounds and smells and tons of people moving. And you continue across that, and suddenly it narrows again. It gets real skinny as you walk along. And I came across a man sitting next to a snake charmer, right? Both of them not performing, just sitting there. And I watched the man who's not the snake charmer trying to get the other guy to make the snake do its thing for me and my friend Philip, who are walking. And so he's trying to get it. And then I see the snake strike at him, went to strike the man because he was being such a pain, right? And you just keep walking from there, and you come across a temple and just one thing after another. And then I found a little tiny staircase that went up like, a floor that's not quite even with the street. It's maybe 3 feet high. And so it was this little staircase that went up to this little level platform. Underneath that platform, in that little 3 foot of space, a man had a store for selling betel nut. And he was sitting under there in this little tiny space. I was like, what? A little tiny space under the stairs selling betel nut there. I was like, I mean, just that the experience of Benares is just like that. You just walk around like, oh my God, there's nothing like it. I don't know why now I brought all that up. Oh, because this guy's sitting here doing it. That's it. Where was that? Took leave. Proceeding on foot, he found a betel leaf seller that opened a stall in front of a small room that looked like a hole. There, that's why I told you that story. One could not possibly enter it without bending one's head. The master said, how painful it is to be shut in such a small space. That is the way of worldly people, and they're happy in such a life, right? That's totally right. I mean, this guy sat under that little tiny, in that 3 foot high store, I guess all day long, every day, selling his betel nut from under there, and it's true. I said that to one of the monks at Bellarmont because Bellarmont, the monks, there's renunciation there. I'm not, don't get me wrong at all. I mean, when you join the monastery at Bellarmont, I basically was given 2 shirts, 2 dhotis, a pair of chappals, and then taken to my room, which was shared with 5 other guys, and it was just a bed, which was really a coffee table, a coffee table, a small desk, and a stool, and that's all that you get there, right? And but the rooms are nice, they're nice rooms. The beds are nice. You're clothed. The food is good. You're taken well care of. And if you step outside the gate of Bellarmont, there's all of these homeless or at least unhoused people, very, very poor people that live sleeping on their rickshaw or sleeping on a shelf in their store. You see that everywhere. And I was marveling. I said to the Swami, I said, Maharaj, the monks live at such a nice level here compared to all of the people outside. I said, I'm surprised that they just don't join the monastery. He says, yes, it is interesting. He says, because as nice as it is in here, we have plenty of empty rooms, right? Because we're not giving up your actualization of your life, giving up control of your life is too big of a commitment for some folks. They'd rather sleep on the shelf in their store or curl up under a staircase, right? And so this Ramakrishna here is seeing the same thing. He says they're happy in such a life. The carriage came up after making the detour. The master entered it with Baburam, M, and Ram Chatterjee. The younger Gopal sat on the roof of the carriage. A beggar woman with a baby on her arm stood in front of the carriage waiting for alms. The master said to M, have you any money? Then Gopal gave her something. The carriage rolled along Burra Bazaar. Everywhere there were signs of great festivity. The night was dark, but illumined with the myriad of lights. The carriage came to the Chitpur road, which was also brightly lighted. The people moved in lines like ants. The crowd looked at the gaily decorated stores and stalls on both sides of the road. There were sweetmeat stores and perfume stores. Pictures, beautiful and gaudy, hung from the walls. Well-dressed shopkeepers sprayed the visitors with rose water. The carriage stopped in front of a perfume stall. The master looked at the pictures and lights and felt happy as a child. People were talking loudly. He cried out, "Go forward! Move on!" He laughed. He said to Baburam with a loud laugh, "Move on! What are you doing?" The devotees laughed too. They understood that the master wanted them to move forward toward God and not be satisfied with their present state. Right? Keep going, keep going. That is a problem in worldly life. The biggest problem, well, I do think it's one of the biggest problems in worldly life, is this idea of relativity. Relativity is really the perfect delusion because you can get comfortable. in any place, right? You can come to accept anything as normal for yourself over time, right? It's like no matter how cold that swimming pool water is, once you jump in and swim back and forth a couple times, it's normal, feels fine. And then if you get out of the pool, you're cold. And then you jump back in and the pool then seems even warmer because you've been, cold outside the pool. So this relativity is really something difficult to work with, mostly because, you know, my life was in a miserable state when I found Tuckor. My life was in a desperate state, horrible unhappiness, a horrible bitterness about life already, even at that age. And and so you join and I come in and now my life, when I compare it to what I was when I joined, oh, I pity myself. What a horrible pain I went through back then, and how needlessly. And now I see my life. I love my life. Now I've never been so happy. I've never had this level of contentment in my life. I never thought it was possible in this world to find this contentment. And the thing about it is that you have to be careful, because if you use your previous life as a measure for where you are now, then you become content at this level of happiness. But this level of happiness is just as pitiful when I'm 20 more years down the road, right? So we never get complacent. Never get complacent. Never just let your life turn into a day-to-day grind. Always be going forward. Always consciously moving forward in your walk with the divine, stretching your mind in all different possible ways to enjoy the presence, to enjoy God everywhere. What are you doing? The devotees laughed too. They understood that the master wanted them to move forward to God and not be satisfied with their present state. The carriage drove on. The master noticed that M had brought some clothes for him. M had with him 2 pieces of unbleached and 2 pieces of washed cloth, but the master had asked him only for the unbleached ones. He said to M, "Give me the unbleached ones. You may keep the others." "All right, you may give me one of them." M, "Then shall I take back the 1 piece?" "Oh, master, the master. Oh, well, then take them both." M, "As you please, sir." That's a good lesson. If you ever are asked to get something for a Swami, get him exactly what he asks for and not one thing more or one thing less, right? I don't care what you see. I don't care what you think. I don't care anything about it. I'm telling you, buy only what you were asked to buy and nothing more. I remember when I first joined the monastery, I went down to Bed Bath and Beyond with one of the other monks, Greg, actually. And we were in Bed Bath and Beyond. And as soon as I walked in, they have the big clearance sale thing right there in the front of the store. And they were selling these big Texas-sized tea glasses for $1 each, a glass, nice glasses. And the only glasses we had in the monastery was little juice glasses. So I thought, wow, $1 each, what a great deal. So I bought like a dozen of them, right, in a box, and I brought them home to the monastery. And they were sitting on the cabinet on the countertop in the monastery. And Swami Prabhupada came in, and he saw them sitting there. He was like, "Oh, see, what is this?" And I said, "Oh," I said, "Swami, I got such a great deal on those today. They were only $12, $1 for glass. We didn't have any big ones, so I thought I should get them." He was quiet for a moment and he says, "Did you go to the store to buy glasses?" I said, "Oh, no, I just went along with Greg because he had to get some cleaning supplies." He said, "So, you see, a monk only comes out of a store with what he went into the store for. If you have no reason to go into a store, you do not go into the store. And if you have a reason for the store, you go in for that reason alone and leave." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he finished it. He gave me the grand poopah at the very end. He says, "See, monks do not buy something simply because it is on sale." And I was like, "Dope. Big lesson right there for me, right?" So it's like that. It's a good practice for everybody. Go into a store, don't pick up anything that you didn't go into that store for. That's a discipline. That's a discipline. Don't walk out of that store with anything you didn't intend to walk out with, right? Go to the store for its reason and leave it with that. All right. The master had asked him only for the unbleached ones. And he said to M, give me the unbleached ones. You can keep the others, or you can give me one of them. Well, then shall I take back the other piece? Then take back both pieces, please. As you please, sir. Master, you can give me those when I need them. You see, yesterday Benny Paul wanted me to carry away some food for Ramlal. I told him I couldn't. It is impossible for me to lay up for the future. You see, the ideal for the monk is dependent entirely on God. If you lay things up for the future, you're depending on those things. You're not depending on God. And so for monks, now this is very important, this is only for monks, that idea of laying up is prohibited. You don't save, you don't lay up for tomorrow. For householders, Ramakrishna says the matter is quite different. You know, that you have your responsibilities of your family and your home. So you have to renounce internally, right? And you go ahead and act externally. So it's necessary for a householder to be responsible with money and to save up for a rainy day, to take care of people's college and expenses and retirement and all of that. So these ideals he's talking about here, that he's demonstrating here, are for the people on the path of monasticism. If you're not on the path of monasticism, it's your duty and your responsibility to save up for your family and for yourself and to take care of things. It is impossible for me to lay up for the future. That's all right, sir. I will take back the 2 pieces of washed cloth. Master, tenderly, don't you see? If any desire arises in my mind, it is for the good of you all. You are my own. I shall tell you if I need anything, right? I'll tell you if I need more than that. Humbly, yes, sir. Referring to a devotee, Sri Ramakrishna said, I said to him yesterday, tomorrow I'm going to Bora Bazar. Please meet me there. Do you know what he said? He said, the tram fare will be 1 anna. Where shall I get it? He had been to Benny Paul's garden yesterday and had officiated there as priest. No one had asked him to do it. He had put on the show himself. He wanted people to know that he was a member of the Brahmo Samaj. Can you tell me what he meant when he said that the tram would cost him 1 anna? The conversation turned to the Annakuta festival of the Marwaris. Master to the devotees. What you have seen here, one sees at Vrindavan too. Rakal has been seeing the same thing there, but the mound of food at Vrindavan is higher, and more people gather there. There you see the Govardhan Hill. That's the only difference. Did you notice the Marwari's devotion? That is the real Hindu ideal. That is the Sanatana Dharma. Did you notice their joy when they carried the image in procession? They were happy to think that they bore the throne of God on their shoulders. The Hindu religion alone is Sanatana Dharma. The various creeds you hear nowadays have come into existence through the will of God and will disappear again through his will. They will not last forever. Therefore I say, I bow down at the feet of even the modern devotees. The Hindu religion has always existed and will always exist. M was going home. He saluted the master and got out of the carriage near Sobha Bazar. Sri Ramakrishna proceeded to Dakshineshwar in a happy mood.
Sorry.
Uh-huh.
Sorry. No. I accidentally unmuted.
No worries. That's good. I was afraid you were going to ask me something I didn't know. All right. Anybody have any questions or comments? That's the end of that chapter. So Ramakrishna just really laying it out there that it's enjoying the presence of God, enjoying your practice, which is what we strive for, right? And realization will come or not come. We are patient in the endeavor, right? We are doing it because we love God. We enjoy being with God. So whether or not we're ever realized is not the point. Our practice is our date night with God, as it were. It's your time with the beloved.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah.
So this just a comment, like a lot of people say, oh, if you were like you should be joyful, right? If you are practicing or if you're a sadhaka or a seeker. But the joy often is either comes later when one is little established or may come and go during the earlier times. So initially, I would say that perhaps it's not always there till such time that one is established. Would you
That is
say?
correct. Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the truth. But that's why the practice, the practice is self-correcting, right? The even though we're not enjoying it, or perhaps not enjoying it. I know at first I didn't really enjoy it. Took a lot of work. I wasn't feeling God. I was just sitting there kind of trying not to fall asleep and trying not to think things that I shouldn't be thinking. Um, so yes, that's normal. How quickly or how long that period lasts really has to do with your sincerity and earnestness in your practice. Um, but it
Or
can
mother's
take,
wish.
or mother, thank you, perfectly. Let's put that one first. Yeah, most definitely correct. Because mother can, and sometimes does, you know. But I think it's not so much, I don't know who's expecting joy from sadhakas. I think that joy comes, right? But I think really what the sadhaka or the sadhu is more concerned about is authenticity.
Mm.
Uh, be where you're at and feel what you're feeling, and mother can work with that. If you mask things or suppress things or pretend things, mother can't really do
Yes.
much with that.
Right.
So if you're not happy, be unhappy and be unhappy freely in front of mother and pour your heart out, right? Oh, look behind me. One of my friends is coming to visit.
Mm.
Right? And
Oh
so
yeah.
so you can yeah, can just continue to practice, push through it. It's
Right.
that it's that authenticity before God that that's when the most beautiful uh, sincere prayer can be made. When you're feeling that pain and you're being honest before God, that's when you can ask for something sincerely, and those prayers are so quickly answered.
Right.
So if you're in that state or having struggling, not happy, no worries. Go and be
Mhm.
unhappy before the Lord. Just be very honest and
Mhm.
pour it all out there, and and pray for what you think you need, and don't be afraid to ask for it, but always end
Mhm.
it by telling God to give you what's best. And,
Yes.
Lord,
Yes.
what a tragedy if he gives us something we don't need, something not helpful. And
No,
yes,
I think sometimes um, it's, looking back, it is it things are not given at. I mean, things are always given at the right time, even though one is expecting it. But
yeah,
you look back and you say, "Oh, thank God it was not at that time," for whatever reason. So it's
yeah,
other things to be taken care of.
that's it. And it's always good to keep your eyes on the
Mhm.
horizon. Don't get too stuck, in
Santosha, santosha.
the santosha sadhui. Yeah, in that sense. No, those prayers are very satisfying. They happen quite often for me actually, where you're just kind of melancholy, a little bit frustrated, a little bit sorry to be caught up in this world, a little bit frustrated that you can't get out of it. Those things come. And at that time, authenticity is the best. So, all right. Well, it's about that time. So instead of starting the new chapter, I'm going to turn off the recorder.
Always say bon voyage and